This is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is the VSiN Morning Line on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome into the VSiN Morning Line. Thank you for getting your day started with us. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi and Harrison Sanford, recapping some Thursday night football. Guys, TNF strikes again. Field goals, baby. So much fun. All right, we're going to get...
No, it wasn't.
I know, I'm sorry to our resident Giants fan. Well, hey, here's the good thing for Giants backers. They cashed plus 5.5 if you got at the closing number. If you were a Cowboys backer earlier in the week, like your girl was, you cashed the Cowboys minus 4.5. Got to jump on those lines early. Anyways, Cowboys win their 7th straight over the Giants, 20-15. Michael, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look, that was a game for the Giants taken. I just really didn't think Dallas played well offensively. I think they moved the ball up and down the field on them, but they just, to me, too many penalties. It was too sloppy for them, and they were fortunate to come away with the win. I thought the Mike McCarthy decision at the end of the game could have proved costly. I mean, to go for a long field goal. Look, I know Aubrey's incredible, but that's not a place to kick the field goal. Punt the ball, pin him inside the 20, or even give him the ball back at the 20, make him go 80 yards a long field. But now you give them the ball at midfield, and all they have to do is make 2 plays, and they got a chance to throw the ball into the end zone to beat you. I thought that was a really, really bad decision. But credit the Cowboys defense for stuffing this run. The Giants offense had 4 drives of over 10 plays, and they just couldn't make an explosive play in the game. Once again, Daniel Jones was 7 yards per attempt. You know, I know Malik Neighbors had a 39-yard catch early in the game. He was wide open, but he averages under 10 yards a catch. I mean, there's just no explosiveness in this offense, and the fact they couldn't run the football, Harrison, was really a detriment to their team. Five times they got to kick field goals, and they're only in the red zone 2 of those times. Think about that.
Yeah, no, the Giants' offense is just uninspiring. And the game in itself last night was uninspiring. But I'll focus in first on that running attack here for the New York Giants. You know, it's a shame because if you look at Devin Singletary, he was still breaking tackles last night. It still didn't amount to anything. He finished with under 2 yards per rushing attempt. And you pointed out Daniel Jones in the passing game. There was no dynamic play from him at all. He did have that big hit to Neighbors, but it felt like every other time he threw the ball over 10 yards, it was in the air for so long. You could have done your taxes, and then the coverage was able to respond to it, and he underthrew receivers left and right. It was just a bad offensive performance from the New York Giants, and then overall in general, Grace, an unentertaining game. With all of those penalties. My goodness. I never thought football could be boring to watch, but my goodness. No rhythm to the game at all.
Yeah, I got to clean that up. Well, it's interesting because Brian Daboll talked about getting the vertical game going during training camp, and that's the one thing that's holding the Giants offense back at this point. However, Brian Daboll does think his quarterback played well. Let's take a listen.
All right, tough game, competitive game. Came down there to the end, missed a couple opportunities to advance the ball or keep drives going. Thought the quarterback played well. Made a lot of good decisions, throws. Couldn't get our run game going. Tried a variety of runs. Give them credit; they did a good job of shutting down our run game.
Can you elaborate on Daniel?
Daniel? Yeah, no, 3 games in a row. I'm proud of the young man. He's made good decisions. He's thrown the ball where he needs to throw the ball. But I thought, for 3 games, he's been locked in.
I think the Giants are just happy that Daniel Jones doesn't look like a disaster. Like, to think that he's played well, you scored 15 points. He didn't make one explosive play. He averaged 7 yards per attempt. I mean, 4 drives that you scored on were 10-plus plays or more. I mean, you're not beating anybody in the National Football League unless you make an explosive play. And, look, they have Neighbors. I think Neighbors is going to be a really good player. He averaged under 10 yards a catch. Like, where's the where are the downfield throws? We keep asking for this. This is the key to Daniel Jones. I mean, again, they're in 13 third downs. They can't convert a third down in the fourth quarter. I mean, they had 16 third downs in the game. They just converted 5 of them. And every drive is 3 plays first down, 3 plays first down. It's a horse and buggy offense. I mean, to say he played good, I mean, that to me was a very average performance, if anything. But again, it's the New York Football Giants. They're more interested in protecting Daniel Jones and making sure that nobody criticizes him. They are actually winning the game. They're 1-3. They're uninspired. And frankly, I don't think the Cowboys are any good, and they should have beaten them last night, Harrison.
Yeah, they definitely should have. I was mystified at how poor they were able to run the ball. In particular, maybe they could have helped Daniel Jones a bit better if they were able to run the ball. But to your point, Daniel Jones has just lacked any dynamic play in this offense, and that's really what the game came down to. It wasn't as if they did have some impressive stops against the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, Cowboys hit for some explosives themselves, but overall the opportunity was right there. But again, the New York Giants just uninspiring. And I said this going into the season though, Grace, like as much, I know the purest NFL fan is going to frown upon me, but last night was just another reason why I'm okay with the Giants losing because their quarterback right now is just not dynamic. He can't throw it down the field.
But Harrison,
a lot of Giants fans.
Stop. As a fan, that was the worst game you could have as a fan. Here, let me tell you. Let me break your heart a little bit here. Let me break your heart a little bit here.
That was a good game for a fan.
No. Did you hear what Daboll said? He played really good. So I could see that. They're gonna convince you that he can win with you can win with him. And this is the worst place to be. They're going to convince you that you can work with him and that all he needs is a better supporting cast around him. Maybe somebody like Saquon Barkley, Grace. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there to you. But to me, this is the worst place you want to be as a Giant fan. That Daboll's spinning that he played good, that he wasn't the reason they lost, when the fact he didn't make any plays. You know, part of when you're paying somebody $40 million, you expect them to make an explosive play. You expect them to get the ball into the end zone. Well, if he didn't get the ball into the end zone, Grace, whose fault is it? Is it the bad play call? See, nobody follows up with the question. Well, wait a minute. Brian, you said he played really well. You scored 15 points. Like, what went wrong? If he played well, what went wrong? Is it the offense? Is it the lack of throws down the field? I mean, he had 40 attempts for 7 yards per attempt. I mean, Neighbors averaged under 10 yards a catch. Tell me how he played good. You know, Harrison, I think this is where you don't want to be as a fan.
Hey, listen, I totally understand what you're saying now. And no, we do not, as a Giant fan, we do not want our head coach truly believing that Daniel Jones is the quarterback of the future. I would say he probably played well if you consider what the expectations are. But the expectations for Daniel Jones are not one of those of a quarterback that would be on a playoff team. Let's keep it real. So I'm just hoping here, and really do hope, that maybe Brian Daboll, because he's in New York City, in that media market, is trying to make it easier for Daniel Jones to walk around and get a bagel. Because out here in New York, they don't play nice with him, the fans or the media. So maybe he is just saying that to kind of cool the tension. Hopefully in the back of his mind, he truly knows and truly understands that Daniel Jones is just not dynamic enough to be a quarterback of a true playoff team. Hopefully.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But to me, that's the problem. That's the lie that goes into it. You just, you can't, when Daboll comes out there, Grace, and he starts telling everybody how good Daniel Jones played, this is part of the propaganda. Like, this is just part of it. It's just like ridiculous. Like, at some point, winning matters, doesn't it, Grace?
It does. I think the fault here is kind of split because you can say, yeah, Daniel Jones isn't dynamic. That is a truth. And there were probably 3 deep balls he missed that could have led to a point total of at least 20 in this game. But I'm looking at these drives here. The Giants have put together an 11-play drive, a 15-play drive, another 11-play drive, a 10-play drive. I mean, and they dominated the time of possession by 10 minutes more than the Cowboys. So it wasn't all Daniel Jones. What I'm disappointed is, why did Brian Daboll kick 5 field goals instead of going for it on 4th down? Some coaches consider the 25-yard line, the red zone. Some of them consider the 30 and beyond the red zone. So the stat will show you they were in the red zone twice. If you're going by the 25-yard line, they were actually there 4 times. And the Giants driving the field the whole game. Why can't you trust your team to get one more play there, keep the drive alive, run the clock out, and at least get that high risk, high reward play of scoring a touchdown? They could have put 21 points on the board here if they at least went for it a few more times.
Well, Grace, I think you have your answer right there. Daboll might say something to the media about how well Daniel Jones played, but he doesn't trust him enough to let him play. He doesn't trust him enough on 4th down. He wanted to come away with points. Look, he's sitting there watching a very close game, and he sees it, and he sees his defense playing well. He sees his defense rallying, around, and that the Cowboys are struggling with their penalties. I mean, every time they started to make a play, a penalty showed up. So for me, I think that was why. I think the proof is in the pudding. They truly don't believe that they can do it. Now, look, the Giants, the Cowboys, I thought their run defense was outstanding, but to me, I didn't think they were covering as well as they needed to. They were 2 for 3, the Giants, on 4th down in the 4th quarter when they needed to make it. And the one play that they don't convert, Neighbors has a chance to make that catch over on the sideline, and he bobbles it, and it goes out of bounds, and then he lands on the ball and hurts himself. So, look, I think to me, what he said at the press conference and his actions that you described on 4th down, they don't match.
All right, well, we'll get to the Cowboys side of this later on in the show. But coming up next, we are getting into our Week 4 preview, sitting on some of the biggest games of the weekends. Do the Bills stay undefeated, and who comes away with the win at Lambeau? Those games are next. You're watching the VSiN Morning Line.
There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Friday on Follow the Money, we'll recap Thursday Night Football. 3 days left in the baseball season. Picks and props with Adam Chernoff, Mike Somich, and Tony Rizzo flying in from Cleveland on the Browns debacle. Follow the Money weekdays 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's Late Night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line. We have a fantastic crew of guests coming up on this show. So before we get into our breakdowns for the biggest NFL games of the weekend, let me tell you who's coming up next on the VSiN Morning Line. At 7:45 Eastern, Thomas Gable giving us some bookmaker insights for the weekend. Thomas Friedman at 8:15 Eastern joining Harrison with a fantasy preview. Our own Jeff Schwartz joining us at 8:30 Eastern with his best bets, and then Tim Murray in the final hour of the show, 9 Eastern, with his best bets for college football. And coming up in this hour, of course, we're getting into these big NFL games. We're going to take a look at the marquee matchups on the college slate, including Georgia, Alabama, and getting into those bookmaker insights with Thomas Gable. So let's start with the Bills and Ravens here, guys. The Ravens, this line actually moving their way from 1.5 to 2.5. The total right now sits at 46.5. Michael, what are your keys to this game?
Well, I mean, this is a game where we're going to find out about Buffalo. I'm not sure we have enough information on Buffalo. The first game of the year, we saw Arizona go in there and run the football effectively on them. And then they've had injuries since then, lost some key players. But their ability to win, they beat Miami on the Thursday night game when Tua gets hurt. And then last week, it really was a walk in the park against Jacksonville. They played really well. So this will be the time where I think we're going to get a true power ranking of the Buffalo defense. Are they going to be good enough? Are they going to be able to do to play at a high level against a quarterback who can run the football? And can they hold up against the run? I think that's going to be the key component here, is can they play the run? I mean, the Ravens have been able to play really good for 3 quarters. They get themselves into the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden things start to fall apart. So, what we know about Buffalo is that they are vulnerable to the run. Teams have been able to run the football on them, and this sets up perfectly. Now, what they've been able to do is control the football. I mean, Buffalo's offense has been so effective in terms of being able to score. They've only held the ball for 28 minutes per game in Buffalo, but yet they've been able to put points on the board. They've scored over 30 points in every single game, and they've only had the ball for 28 minutes. That's pretty impressive, Grace. So, to me, this is about Baltimore. Are we sure Buffalo's defense is really good? And Baltimore, can they adjust the game and handle this Buffalo offense, which we think isn't explosive, but when you're scoring over 30 points in every game and you've only had the ball for 28 minutes, you're explosive.
Mm-hmm. You look at what the Bills did this offseason, it feels like addition by subtraction. We were all worried about losing Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, but Harrison, they've been distributing the ball pretty evenly here. And I know you have your ticket for Josh Allen MVP. How do you feel about this Bills offense? Is it one of the better versions we've seen in Buffalo?
Well, I think that's still to be determined. I think it's definitely working to Josh Allen's advantage and this team's advantage, not having to force the ball to one particular player the way that Joe Brady is kind of operating right now. We've seen him go rush heavy in a couple of games to start the season. This last game, they were pass heavy. So I think there's something to say where Josh Allen doesn't feel forced. I mean, if you go back to last year, those turnover numbers for Josh Allen were uninspiring. And the fact that he's been able to take care of the ball definitely said something. And Michael, I pointed it out to you maybe a couple of shows ago that this team kind of reminds me of that Kansas City Chiefs team that lost Tyreek Hill, where we thought they would be worse, but it actually turned out they were just as good, if not even better. But the two things that I do worry about here, Michael, going forward for the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, number one, will they actually have a receiver they could go to when it actually comes down to it? Will that defense continue to play at a high level? And even though those Kansas City Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill, they still had Travis Kelce, who was a target hog. And so far right now, through 3 games, Michael, Dalton Kincaid only has 11 targets. And he was somebody who was maybe seen as, okay, maybe he's not a perimeter number 1 option, but he could still be a number 1-ish type of option for this offense. And right now, they're not looking at him as that or not utilizing him in that fashion, Michael.
Well, I think the proof's in the pudding here, right? I mean, Josh Allen averages 8.7 yards per attempt. I know they don't have Stephon Diggs, and everybody in the media gets all caught up about that, but they have a really good receiving corps. They're finding a way. I mean, James Cook's averages 12 yards a catch as a running back. I mean, Kincaid, he's got 8 catches. He's at 10 yards a catch. I think they're spraying the ball around, and they're utilizing all their weapons that they have, and the fact that they're able to get the ball down the field and make plays, and they're running the football effectively. Look, Von Miller come back to life. He's got 3 sacks. He didn't have any tackles all of last year. So they're getting some ability to make plays on defense and rush the passer. I think this is a better offense. Look, Josh Allen hasn't thrown an interception all year in 3 games, which is really good for him. And I think, to me, it's just a different look. We have to get used to it. They may not have a marquee name as a number 1 receiver, but the way they're moving the football, the way they're controlling the outcome of these games, and they're getting off to fast starts. I mean, look, they've scored 68 points in the first half already. Out of the 112 points they scored 68 in the first half. I mean, that's what you're looking for, Harrison, in terms of who is the number 1. And I know that's all about fantasy, and it gets into it. But this is exactly what you want offensively. You've got a lot of different options, and a lot of guys are contributing.
No, it's definitely inspiring, the fact that Josh Allen hasn't turned over the ball. And I do think an equal opportunity offense definitely makes sense going forward, where you don't feel pigeonholed to give one particular person the ball. With that being said, though, Michael, when it comes down to actually winning an AFC championship game, winning a divisional game, winning the Super Bowl, don't you need that number 1, okay, they're in man coverage, I know this guy can win this route? Like, doesn't that make it a little bit easier to win the big games? I'm not saying they can't be a great regular season team, which I think they will, but in big moments, in big spots, don't you still want that? This is my guy. He's in man coverage. He's going to win that. He's going to win that battle versus that DB, that safety.
Well, I mean, don't you think Shakir's doing that? I mean, that guy's a good player. I mean, I know, I mean, I think, to me, I don't know what more this kid has to do. And look, let me say this to you. I know he's just from Boise, and he was a college free agent and all that. But I mean, I think he was a 5th round pick or something like that. But so was Amon St. Brown. I mean, this kid's played really well. And then one of the other players, I mean, Keon Coleman, the kid they drafted in the first round, they traded up to get it. He's starting to come along. Yeah, I think, to me, here's the problem with that analogy, though. You play man coverage against Josh Allen, and you better make sure somebody's spying on him. No, take that back. You better make sure 2 people are spying on him, because the one guy ain't going to tackle him. And so everybody's really worried about playing man on 3rd down against him, because he can take off. I think, to me, this is ultimately the best version of a team. They're not trying, and Josh Allen said it. He took it back, Grace, but he said it. He's not trying to force the ball to Stephon Diggs, which they are down in Houston. I mean, Diggs averages 8.2 yards a catch down there. He's got 24 targets. It's ridiculous that they've minimized Tank Dell. Tank Dell is one of their best players. They've minimized Dalton Schultz. He's one of their best players, because they're trying to force the ball into a guy who's complaining. This is a team sport, and I think Buffalo plays it as well as anybody, Grace.
Wait, I got one more question, Grace.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Michael. Okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. So, okay, now I'm going to take your theory here, Michael. So, the best offenses are equal opportunity. As a man who's worked in front offices before, why on earth are we paying wide receivers $35 million a year if the best offenses are equal opportunity? Whether it be a Amon-Ra St. Brown, whether it be a Tyreek Hill, whether it be Jamar Chase or CeeDee Lamb. Why are GMs doing this if, in your opinion, the best offenses are equal opportunity?
Well, you need receivers. I'm not saying you don't, but I think you could find them in the draft.
For sure.
Think we're proving that. Shakir is a 5th round pick. I mean, Rashid down in New Orleans is a college free agent from Weber State. I mean, there are other guys out there. You don't have to use I mean, Drake London's the 16th pick in the draft. He averages 10 yards a catch. I think you can find that anywhere. So I think, to me, it's about building build your team inside out. But we're in an era of football where we have these young general managers who are playing Madden. I mean, Miami can't block anybody. The guy in Chicago, they can't. Ryan Poles, they can't block anybody, but they got great receivers. I mean, to me, it's a testament to what never changes, what never goes out of style, is the fact that if you can't control the line of scrimmage, you're not going to win. Look, the Giants they draft Neighbors. Neighbors is a really good player. He averaged under 10 yards a catch last night. He averaged under 10 yards a catch. Is it his fault? I don't know. The only play that he made an explosive play on, they blew the coverage. He had 39 yards. He's wide open. They blew the coverage. So at some point, like all this talk, and here's the biggest misconception about the National Football League, is everybody thinks there's all these number one receivers. You know, I'm sure, Harrison, you could probably have 15 number one receivers. I'll tell you this, there's probably about 4, and that's it. And that's it. But people are paying them as number one, and that's the problem, Grace.
I mean, whether you build around a number one receiver or have an equal opportunity offense, you still have to respect the market rate. And that's why these guys are getting paid so much, because you wouldn't be able to pull them in otherwise. Same reason why we see these quarterbacks who don't deserve the massive contracts being paid so much, because you have to respect the market. All right. On the other side of this break, we are getting into more NFL big game breakdowns. We got 2 divisional games for you. Vikings, Packers, Saints, Falcons, and Aaron Jones has some words facing his previous team. You're listening to the VSiN Morning Line.
They're off.
The only thing better than football is the excitement of all the contests. Catch the Circa Friday Football Invitational at 9 p.m. Eastern with picks from some of the sharpest bettors around the country. Then on Saturdays at 9, watch the Football Contest Show, where our expert hosts and guests go through the consensus choices for some of the biggest betting contests in the world. The fun doesn't stop there. Visit VSiN.com for the full lineup and join us on the Sports Betting Network.
This is VSiN,
the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line as we continue to get you ready for another weekend of NFL action. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi and Harrison Sanford. A couple division games we want to get to here. The Vikings at Packers. Packers with a short dog on the look-ahead line. They are now a 2.5-point favorite at home, but this line has toggled back and forth between the 2.5 and 3. The total sitting at 43.5. And for Aaron Jones, of course, this game has a little bit more meaning for him after 7 seasons with the Packers. He now will face them with the Vikings. And is he going to leap at Lambeau if he scores a touchdown? Here's what he has to say.
If you're not thinking about the end zone, you're thinking about the wrong thing. No, definitely. And I'm definitely leaping. Definitely leaping up there. It depends on which end zone I'm scoring, but I'm either end zone is not too tall. So it is kind of high up there, but I can still get up there. So either one. Hopefully there's a Vikings fan in one of them, so I can jump up to them. I think that'll be a pretty cool shot, pretty cool side-by-side with the 2 jerseys and doing a Lambeau leap.
This is going to be an interesting game. I mean, because the Green Bay Packers, we still don't know if Jordan Love's going to play. And I think this line is kind of jockeying around some of the things that he may play, may not play. But here's what we do know. If he does play, I mean, this Viking defense last year got torched by them. They couldn't play man-to-man. This Packer offense has 3 receivers with Malik Willis starting 2 games that has the ability to make big explosive plays. Unlike the New York Football Giants, they have 3 receivers that average over 16 yards a catch, and they can run the football. I mean, they've been dominating the running game with Josh Jacobs really powering the game. So this is a tough matchup, I think, for Minnesota based on what happened last year and then based on the way the Green Bay Packers have really done a good job of turning the ball over with their defense, rushing the passer, creating problems. So if Love plays, I think it's a different game. If Willis plays, I think Brian Flores has 2 call sheets here. He's got to look at what is he going to do, how's he going to handle it, and I think ultimately that's going to be the key. And I just see this as a really harder game for Sam Darnold against a good front, against a team that can stop the run, that can play. They're playing much better defensively than they did in the opening game, Grace.
Yeah, this will be a good one. And you have to keep in mind, too, looking at this line, the Vikings do have one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. So when you remove them from that, it's a little bit more pronounced. Harrison, talking about the Vikings, though, they are one of the most fun surprises of the NFL season, starting out 3-0 and this kind of resurgence of Sam Darnold. Where do you have him among NFL quarterbacks through 3 weeks?
Well, that's to be determined, Grace. I think he's obviously gotten off to a nice start here in the first 3 games of the season. But as Michael pointed out here, this Packers defense that he's going against will be a different type of test, particularly when it comes to playmaking. Jair Alexander and Xavier McKinney and all the other guys in that secondary have been playmakers. So far through this season, they've had 7 interceptions. They've known how they play the ball well. And so in this game where if Jordan Love comes back and you see an opportunity where the Packers put up points, well, now Sam Darnold in a very pass-happy offense, one of the top 5 offenses in terms of passing game neutral script, throwing that ball against this secondary could very well temper our likingness or our expectations for Sam Darnold going forward because of the playmaking ability of this secondary. So I would say, Michael, to be determined, this would be a very good test for Darnold in his Vikings era.
Well, I think this is all about the front, Harrison. I think to me, with the way the Packers front's really done a good job. Where Rashard Gary's got a sack. I mean, they've got 11 sacks as a team. They've been very physical against the run game. I mean, they've really improved in the sense of where they were last year with Joe Brady. With their former defensive coordinators. It wasn't Joe Brady, but Joe Barry, their former defensive coordinator, and what they've done this year. I think they're a completely different team, and it shows up on third down. That's really been the key. They've only allowed teams to convert 9 third downs in 3 games. Think about that. 9 third downs out of 32 third downs that they've faced. Only 9 have been converted. That's why you win. And they've held the football for 33 minutes plus offensively because they're averaging 5.5 a carry. And then they have this big strike ability. I mean, this Packer team is really good. And the defense is playing at a higher level than it did in week one against the Eagles. And that field might have had a lot to do with it, Grace.
So earlier in the week, we talked about some of the best coordinator battles in the NFL this week, Michael, and Matt LaFleur, Brian Flores is one of the best of them. And you look at Malik Willis, who doesn't have much NFL experience there. So game plan will look different. I mean, right, because Packers have been a little bit more run heavy to support Malik Willis. But how do you expect this coordinator battle to look?
Well, I think, what we've seen with Jeff Hafley is he's way more aggressive. He's trying to get after it. They're taking the line of scrimmage. They're controlling the line. They're being able to handle what they have to do, and they can rush the passer. And the fact that the Packers have been so good at playing from in front, right? I mean, I think that's the other thing. I mean, this Packer team has gotten off to incredible starts. And so they've only given up 24 points in the first half, and they've scored – and they've scored almost 40. They've scored 49 points in the first half. So they've got that first half point differential we talk all the time about. And that makes a huge difference. And it puts.
Oh, looks like we lost Michael Lombardi. We'll get him back later in the show. I do hope, Harrison, that Aaron Jones gets his Lombardi leap. Have you ever been to Lambeau Field? Oh, I just said it wrong. Lambeau leap.
Yeah, I have not been to Lambeau Field, but it's only right, Grace. He has to absolutely do it. And you have players who are actually true rivals. Like let's say somebody who plays for the Bears who willingly jumps into the crowd there at Lambeau. Aaron Jones was celebrated there. He has to, and I think he'd be the one person that could actually do it and truly get embraced. Now, mind you, Grace, he probably shouldn't do this in like the fourth quarter, when the game is being decided.
Right.
Hopefully you get it done in like the first quarter. A little bit more enjoyable if you're a Packers fan. So first half Lambeau leap, second half Lambeau leap, a little bit more dicey. You might end up with some Coors Light on your head if you're Aaron Jones.
Oh, I totally forgot. Yeah, you totally get showered by beer when you do that too. Ew, I wouldn't want to run around on the field with that. All right, we're going to get to another game here, but first I want to send out a reminder to everyone. You can get your best bets over at VSiN.com, and the only way to get those best bets is if you sign up for a VSiN Pro subscription. Once you sign up, you'll also get a free autographed copy of Michael Lombardi's book, Football Done Right, plus $41 off the typical $240 year price. Just use the promo code Lombardi when you sign up to get your first year of VSiN Pro for $199 plus the free book. That's promo code Lombardi. Head over to VSiN.com. Speaking of, it looks like we got Michael Lombardi back. I'm happy you made it. Let's get into Saints-Falcons now. The look-ahead line, Falcons were a 3.5-point favorite at the reopen. This was just a 1-point spread. But now as we sit here on a Friday, Falcons a 2.5 favorite at home again as they take on their division rival Saints. The total sitting at 42. Michael, what are your keys to this game?
Well, I think a lot of this line is predicated on the fact of what happened last year. The Falcons were able to dominate this game. They ran the ball for 228 yards on the Saints last year with 41 carries. And to me, this usually should be a perfect setup for the Saints in the sense that we know that Atlanta can't rush the passer, right? They're not a good pass rushing team. They have 3 sacks in 3 games by 2 players, 1.5 by Grady Jarrett, and another one by Matt Judon. So they really can't rush the passer. And usually when teams can't rush the passer against Derek Carr, that's when he lights it up, right? He's really good in those areas. They've only had 17 hits on quarterbacks, the Falcons, in 3 games. So they're not getting near the quarterback. They're not disrupting. So that would lend you to believe that Carr would be very effective against this team. And to me, the line is telling us that Atlanta's offense is going to be the one who's more effective. And I think when you look at this, I think Dennis Allen has always been very good at being able to pressure a quarterback who's not mobile. That's going to be the key. Can Atlanta run the ball? If they can run it for 228, they had 41 carries in the last time they played them in Atlanta. I think that's going to be the key. And especially it's going to be a bounce-back game, Harrison. I think that's going to be – the Saints got embarrassed. They should have won that game against Philly. They just couldn't move the ball. They played good enough. They gave up 2 big plays. I think this is a bounce-back game for the Saints, but the line's moving towards the Falcons.
Yeah, speaking of a bounce-back game for the Saints, their offense was not to be found this past weekend. Jalen Carter and that Eagles front really quelled that rushing attack from Alvin Kamara and company. What happened there and what can they do to prevent it from happening again?
Well, I think to me, one of the things they've got to be able to do is if they protect Carr in the game, right, and if Atlanta can't get to him, Carr's going to make plays. I mean, it's pretty much an easy coverage for him to do. And for the Falcons, if Kirk Cousins doesn't start to make some throws down the field and show he's got more explosiveness. Look, one thing we learned last night about the Giant game, you can't go 12 plays on drives and something usually breaks down. There's always a play here, a play there. You got to make explosive plays, Grace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a bit of false confidence with this Falcons team. They really should be 0-3. So for what it's worth, I'm taking the Saints plus the 2.5 in my pick'em pool this week. Coming up next, we're getting some Bookmaker insights. Thomas Gable of the Borgata joins us with an update on the action he's seeing in the NFL and college football markets. You're listening to the VSiN Morning Line.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan, with a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
VSiN's got you covered for the start of the season with our football special. For $175, you'll get access to everything VSiN has to offer. With VSiN Pro, you'll receive daily picks straight to your inbox, detailed analysis on every game, and exclusive data like our betting splits to help you become a sharper bettor. Get all of this for just $175 through the Super Bowl. Or try a monthly subscription and get your first 30 days for only $9.99. Don't miss out on this offer. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the VSiN Morning Line. Harrison Sanford, Michael Lombardi, and Grace Remington joining you as we recap what happened in Thursday Night Football last night and look ahead to the full weekend of football with some betting insights. And to give us those insights on the weekend and what happened in Thursday Night Football, joining us now on the Progressive Guest Line is Sportsbook Director at the Borgata, Thomas Gable. TG, thank you for joining us on this Friday morning. Before we get into the rest of the slate, how did the book make out last night? Where did you see the majority of the bets and the money, and how did it play out?
We made out very well on the game. We took some late Cowboys money there and closed 5.5. And obviously, with the game landing on 5 and the missed field goal there at the end, certainly a lot was in play there with that field goal. So it ended up being a good outcome for us. We opened that game 5.5. I knew some spots opened it lower, but we opened 5.5, and we touched 6 very, very briefly. Kind of just we figured we were going to take a bunch of Giants money at 6. It's what happened, and then so we stayed at 5.5 pretty much most of the week there, and again, late Cowboys money came in, swung the result pretty well for us. Total closed at 45, so off to a decent start for NFL Week 4, that's for sure. So I can't complain about the result at all from a financial perspective.
EG, I know you're an Eagle house there at the Borgata in Atlantic City. So the Eagle line with Tampa, it opened up at 2.5, and now it seems to be trending down to 1.5. What's your perspective on the line, and is it the Eagles' injuries that's moving this line towards Tampa?
Well, there's still, I think, Michael, you can find some 2s, some 2.5s out there in the market. It is down to 1.5 at a lot of spots. But again, yeah, I mean, you're seeing a lot of injuries there. Not only A.J. Brown, who's been out, but now obviously Devontae Smith is injured, and this is a revenge spot for Philadelphia here. This is a Tampa team who obviously got them in the playoffs last year. Eagles were in that horrible downward spiral and kind of backed themselves into the playoffs last year, and Tampa easily took care of them in that playoff game. So there is a revenge factor here for Philly, but going down to Tampa as a small favorite here. And, right now the betting with us is actually it's pretty good two-way action on this game. So, no real decision at present. It'll be interesting to see how this game does get bet with us as we head closer to kickoff, and how much of the local money does come in on Philadelphia. Last week with the Saints, we had late Philly money, and that was actually one of our worst results of the week. Last week was Philly winning there in New Orleans, and even in play with some of the decisions that Sirianni was making, people were still coming up and taking shots at the Eagles in play, and it ended up working out for them. So we'll see how this goes. If it's kind of bet in a similar fashion where there's late Eagles money here, but right now it's been pretty good two-way action. We're sitting at 1.5. But again, you can still find some 2s out there if you want to take the 2 with Tampa.
TG, I want to ask you about the Bills-Ravens game. I mean, this one could have home field playoff implications. A lot of people high on the Bills, obviously, after their Monday Night Football win, and maybe the Ravens a little bit undervalued in the market still, although this line is moving their way. Where are you seeing the action in this one?
Again, another good game here. Ravens 2.5-point favorites, and hasn't moved from the opener. This is a solid number, I think, at this point, and you're getting good two-way action at 2.5. So it will be a great game. I'm very happy that this is the primetime Sunday night game. There's going to be a lot of interest behind it, and as we know, there's primetime games, whether it's Sunday night or Monday night, you always get a lot of parlay liability tied into these games. So there's a lot of things. Everybody kind of includes those primetime games in their parlays. So there's always typically a pretty big decision to be had. And with this one, with two teams here that obviously are pretty much at the top of the AFC, and from a power rating perspective, I have them pretty much even at this point. I've bumped Buffalo up a point from where I started them before the season. Baltimore's come down about a half a point. Only I've adjusted them down a half a point, but I think two teams that should certainly still be there at the end and competing for the AFC. Along with Kansas City there, and this is going to be a good one early on in the season to see.
Joining us on the Progressive Guest Line is Thomas Gable, Sportsbook Director at the Borgata. TG, you mentioned that game between the Ravens and the Bills, and there's been significant movement towards Josh Allen now being the MVP. Have you seen any other significant movement in terms of the futures market, whether it be a team to make the playoffs or miss the playoffs, win a division or lose a division, or any of the other award markets that might be more notable to our audience?
I mean, obviously Minnesota, with the start that they've got off to, this was a team that was given no real chance before the season started to compete in that division. So you obviously have had to make the adjustments in the division price, and Sam Darnold is somebody again who nobody really thought anything of. We have certainly seen a lot of Sam Darnold through the years, and he's been playing at a great level for him. And obviously, this team has gelled, and defensively, they're doing all the right things. So Minnesota's probably the team, and Sam Darnold and his MVP odds. Those have been two big adjustments there, and just in terms of from a power rating perspective, obviously, Carolina was a team that you had to adjust down after a couple weeks, and now with Dalton there, they've kind of bounced back to where I pretty much had them at the beginning of the season, but. We'll see. Carolina obviously needs to get a few more wins there to kind of get back into the hunt in terms of their odds movement in the division. But they were a team that were pretty popular in the offseason, and people taking shots on them to be an outside chance to win the division. And it didn't seem very likely after the first 2 weeks, but now maybe there is some hope there with Dalton starting.
TG, we've seen a big, heavy push here for Atlanta on a lot of boards across, a lot of books across the country. What do you have on the Atlanta-New Orleans game, and where do you think this line will end up before kickoff?
So the Falcons opened a 1.5 favorite. They're now up to 2.5, and I think this is probably going to remain at 2.5. I don't see this getting to 3. I think you move to 3, you're going to get a lot of New Orleans money there. But it's been early Falcons money. That's what has pushed this number up a point. And I think we're just going to stay really at 2.5 here and see what comes. Again, I would not expect a 3 to pop there. If it does, I think it's going to be very, very briefly, and it's going to get gobbled up pretty quickly there if you can grab 3 on the Saints. But so, yeah, if this is a game that you're kind of monitoring, I think you're kind of probably going to be stuck with the 2.5. So at this point, I wouldn't look to lay that with the Falcons. I think 1.5 is probably right where we opened it, but people thought, all right, Atlanta at home, and as you said, Michael, they were a team that a lot of people believed in before the season started, and Cousins just has not had that performance yet, and hasn't looked the part in terms of him being able to move. And I know that was obviously the concern, an aging quarterback coming off a significant injury like he has been. And he just has not been able to move. And not that he's ever been particularly mobile, but I think it certainly has affected his velocity and how he's been throwing the ball.
Thomas, we have less than a minute left here, so I do want to squeeze some college football in. Bama finally moves to a 1.5 point line last night. Any thoughts on that game and anywhere else you're seeing significant action?
Now, Georgia-Bama, this is going to be the big one, obviously, for everybody tomorrow. So, Michael's going to be there. And, we opened Georgia 2.5. And, it's moved towards Bama, which has not been surprising to me. I make this game personally a pick in Tuscaloosa. But it's been early Alabama money. And but I think overall it's just going to be a tremendous handle game and pretty evenly bet.
TG, thank you for joining us, and enjoy your weekend, my friend.
Thank you, TG.
All right, thank you.
All right, coming up in the next hour, we'll tell you how to maximize your fantasy football lineups. We'll get into that Alabama-Georgia game, and is there another major NFL upset on the slate? That's next.
A new football season means a new lineup on VSiN. Start your day with sharp betting analysis.